What happens when a laid-back Hollywood star known for his charm and easygoing personality suddenly finds himself in a tense, uncomfortable exchange on live television? And instead of laughing it off, he pushes back. Make sure to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience is already clapping as the segment begins, that familiar daytime energy filling the studio. The camera pans across the table, the host smiling, papers stacked neatly, coffee mugs in place. Everything feels routine, predictable. Whoopi leans slightly forward in her chair, glancing toward the monitor as Channing Tatum walks out. The applause grows louder. Whoopi smiles, nodding. All right, here he is. Channing Tatum, everybody. Channing walks in relaxed, waving casually, giving a quick handshake and half hug to each host. He looks comfortable, like someone who's done this dozens of times. He sits down, adjusts slightly, and flashes that familiar grin. Thanks for having me, he says, still smiling. Joy jumps in quickly. You always bring the energy, we love that. Channing laughs lightly. I try. Depends on the coffee situation. Audience chuckles. Whoopi raises an eyebrow, playful but observant. Oh, you need coffee to deal with us? Channing smirks. I didn't say that, but I did not say that either. The audience reacts with a louder laugh. The tone is light, easy, exactly what viewers expect. Sunny leans in. So, you've got a new project coming out, right? Something a little different from what people are used to seeing from you. Channing nods. Yeah, it's definitely a shift. More serious, more grounded. I wanted to try something that pushes me a bit. Whoopi tilts her head slightly. Pushes you or fixes your image? The audience gives a small, oh, not loud but noticeable. Channing pauses for just a second, subtle, but there. He keeps smiling. I don't think my image needs fixing. Whoopi shrugs. Well, Hollywood has a way of boxing people in. You've been the funny guy, the dancer, the charming lead. Sometimes people want to be taken seriously. Channing nods slowly. Sure, yeah. And I think I've earned the chance to explore that. Alyssa jumps in, trying to keep it balanced. And you've done a range of roles. Whoopi cuts in, not harshly but firmly. But the audience still sees you a certain way. That's just reality. There's a slight shift in the room now. It's subtle, but the energy tightens just a bit. Channing leans back slightly in his chair. I get that, but I also think audiences are smarter than we give them credit for. Whoopi nods, but her tone sharpens just a little. Are they? Because the box office usually says otherwise. The audience reacts again, a mix of laughter and that low murmur that comes when things start to feel a little less scripted. Channing's smile fades just a touch. Not gone, but not as easy as before. Well, I think the box office also depends on what people are given, he says. If you don't give them something different, how are they supposed to respond differently? Joy leans in, sensing the shift. That's a fair point. Whoopi doesn't back off. But you've been part of that system. You've benefited from it. There's a pause. Channing nods slowly. Yeah, I have. Absolutely. Whoopi continues, her tone calm but direct. So now when you say you want to push yourself, is that about growth, or is that about rebranding? The word lands heavier than the others. Rebranding. The audience quiets a bit more now. Channing exhales slightly through his nose, glancing briefly toward the table before looking back up. I think it's about growth, he says, more firmly now. I don't think everything has to be turned into a strategy. Sunny steps in gently. But in Hollywood, it usually is. Channing nods. Sometimes, yeah. But not always. Sometimes it's just wanting to do something different as a human being. Whoopi watches him closely. But you understand why people question it. Channing tilts his head. I understand curiosity. I don't always understand the assumption behind it. That line gets a noticeable reaction. A mix of claps and murmurs. Whoopi leans back slightly, folding her hands. Well, assumptions come from patterns. Channing's tone shifts just a little, still calm but more grounded. Or from people deciding they already know the story. There's a brief silence. Joy quickly tries to ease things. Okay, all right, we're getting philosophical this morning. Audience laughs lightly, tension breaking just a bit. But Whoopi isn't fully letting it go. No, but this is important, she says. Because audiences invest in you. They feel like they know you. Channing nods. And I appreciate that. I really do. Whoopi continues. So when you change direction, people are going to question it. That's part of the deal. Channing leans forward slightly now, elbows near his knees. And I'm okay with questions. I'm just not okay with being reduced to one version of myself forever. The audience claps, louder this time. Sunny nods. That's fair. But Whoopi's expression stays thoughtful, not fully convinced. All right, she says. But let me ask you this. She pauses just long enough to shift the room again. When you say you're more serious now, are you saying what you did before wasn't meaningful? That question lands heavier than anything so far. The audience goes quiet. Channing blinks once, clearly caught off guard by how it's framed. No, he says quickly. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. Whoopi raises an eyebrow slightly. Because it kind of sounds like that. Channing shakes his head more firmly now. No, it doesn't. Or at least, that's not what I meant. There's a subtle tension building now, not explosive, but real. The kind that makes people lean forward in their seats. Alyssa jumps in again. I think what he's saying is that he's evolving, Channing nods. Exactly. Evolving. Not replacing anything. Whoopi looks at him steadily. But words matter. Channing meets her gaze. So does interpretation. Another small "oh" from the audience. Now it's clear. This isn't just a light interview anymore. The smiles are thinner. The pauses are longer. Joy shifts in her seat. All right, okay, we're going to take a quick breath. But before she can fully pivot, Whoopi speaks again. No, I just want clarity. Because a lot of actors come here and suddenly they're serious and everything before that gets minimized. Channing's jaw tightens slightly, just enough to notice. I'm not minimizing anything, he says. I'm expanding. There's a beat. And for the first time since the segment started, the room feels divided. Some audience members clap. Others stay quiet. The camera cuts briefly across the table, the hosts exchanging quick glances, reading the moment. What started as a routine, upbeat interview has clearly shifted into something else. And it's only just getting started. The tension doesn't break when the applause fades. It just settles into the room, heavier now, like everyone is aware something real is happening and no one wants to miss it. Joy gives a quick, practiced smile toward the camera. All right, we're back, still here with Channing Tatum. A few light claps from the audience, but it's not the same energy as before. People are watching more closely now. Channing shifts in his chair, sitting a little more upright. The relaxed posture from earlier is gone. He's still composed, but there's a clear edge now, like he's choosing his words more carefully. Whoopi looks at him again, calm but direct. Let me just say this, nobody's attacking you. Channing nods once. I didn't say you were. Whoopi tilts her head slightly. But you're responding like you feel boxed in. There's a short pause. Channing lets out a small breath, then leans forward slightly. I think I'm responding to the idea that I need to justify wanting to grow. Sunny steps in, her tone measured. But no one's saying you can't grow. Channing looks at her, then back at Whoopi. It kind of feels like that's what's being implied. A murmur moves through the audience again. Whoopi shakes her head slowly. No, what's being said is, when you come on a platform like this and talk about being more serious, people hear that as a shift away from what made them connect with you. Channing responds quickly this time. But that's not what I said. Whoopi replies just as fast. It's how it sounded. That overlap, both of them speaking with just a bit more firmness, lands sharply. Joy raises a hand slightly. Okay, but Channing continues, not louder, just more deliberate. I think there's a difference between what's said and what's assumed. And I think sometimes people fill in the gaps with their own narrative. The audience reacts, a mix of claps and low murmurs again. Whoopi leans back, crossing her arms now. Not defensive, but settled. So now it's the audience's fault? That line hits. Channing's eyebrows lift slightly. No, that's not what I said either. Whoopi gestures lightly with her hand. But that's the direction you're going. Channing shakes his head, a little more visibly now. No, I'm saying, if I say I want to challenge myself, that shouldn't automatically turn into everything I did before didn't matter. Sunny nods slightly. That's fair. But Whoopi doesn't immediately respond. She watches him for a second, then leans forward again. All right, let me ask you something else, she says. Because this is where it gets tricky. The room quiets again. When actors decide to shift gears, sometimes it comes after criticism. Reviews, public perception, even social media. Channing listens, expression steady. Are you reacting to that? Whoopi asks. Or is this really just personal growth? There's a longer pause this time. Channing looks down briefly, then back up. I think it's both, he says honestly. I'd be lying if I said I don't hear what people say. The honesty shifts the tone slightly. The audience leans in again, quieter now. But, he continues, That doesn't mean I'm controlled by it. Whoopi nods slowly. But it influences you. Channing shrugs lightly. Everything influences you. That's part of being human. Joy smiles slightly. Okay, now that I agree with. A few laughs break the tension, but only briefly. Whoopi continues, still focused. So if the criticism wasn't there, would you still be making this change? That question lands even harder. Channing exhales slowly. I think so, he says. But maybe it wouldn't feel as urgent. That answer gets a stronger reaction. People clapping, some nodding. Sunny leans in. That's actually really honest. Channing nods. Yeah, I'm not going to pretend I live in a bubble. Whoopi studies him again. But urgency can sometimes lead to decisions that aren't fully authentic. The word authentic lingers. Channing's expression tightens slightly. So now it's not authentic? He asks, calm but clearly pushing back. Whoopi raises her hand slightly. I didn't say that. I said sometimes. Channing leans back again, but this time there's a visible shift, less relaxed, more guarded. It just feels like every answer I give gets turned into something else, he says. The audience reacts, a louder murmur this time. Joy jumps in quickly. No, I don't think that's what's happening. But Channing continues, not raising his voice, just more firm now. I'm saying I want to grow. That's it. And somehow it becomes you're rebranding. You're reacting. You're not authentic. He gestures lightly with his hand, not aggressive, but clearly frustrated. That's a lot to put on a simple statement. There's a beat. Sunny looks between them. I think what's happening is we're unpacking it in real time. Channing nods once. Yeah, and I'm answering in real time. Whoopi tilts her head. And we're asking in real time. Another pause. The tension is steady now, not explosive, but undeniably present. Alyssa speaks up, trying to soften things. I think viewers actually appreciate seeing this side of the conversation. Channing gives a small, tight smile. Yeah, I'm sure they do. That line lands with a different tone, a hint of sarcasm, just enough to shift the mood again. The audience picks up on it immediately. Whoopi notices too. You don't sound too thrilled about that, she says. Channing looks at her directly. I just came here to talk about my work. Whoopi responds quickly. And we are. Channing shakes his head slightly. This doesn't feel like that anymore. There it is. That's the moment where everything becomes unmistakably real. The audience goes quiet again. Joy leans forward, hands slightly raised. Okay, let's just. But Whoopi speaks over her, not loudly but firmly. This is part of the job. Channing doesn't look away. I know what the job is, he says. There's a sharpness in that line, not aggressive but unmistakable. Whoopi holds his gaze. Then you know these questions come with it. Channing nods once. Yeah, and I'm answering them. Whoopi responds immediately. Then don't act like you're being cornered. That line lands hard. A louder, oh, ripples through the audience. Channing's jaw tightens, more noticeably now. I'm not acting like anything, he says. I'm telling you how it feels. Whoopi leans back again, crossing her arms. Well, feelings don't always reflect reality. That's the sharpest line so far. The room goes still. Channing pauses longer this time. He looks down briefly, then back up. And when he speaks, his tone is calmer but heavier. Reality is, I came here to have a conversation, he says. Not to defend my entire career. There's a strong wave of applause from part of the audience. But not everyone joins in. That division in the room becomes even clearer now. Sunny glances at Whoopi, then back at Channing. I don't think anyone's asking you to defend everything, she says carefully. But when you bring up change, people are going to ask why. Channing nods slowly. I've answered why. Whoopi responds immediately. And we're asking deeper. Channing exhales again, this time more visibly frustrated. And I'm telling you, not everything has a deeper agenda. There's another pause. And now, for the first time, it feels like neither side is willing to step back. The conversation isn't just tense anymore. It's locked in. And everyone watching can feel that whatever comes next is probably not going to stay controlled for much longer. The silence after that last exchange hangs longer than anything before it. Not the kind of silence that feels natural, the kind where everyone is aware that something just shifted, and no one wants to be the first to move too quickly. A few audience members clap, but it's scattered, uncertain. Channing sits back now, one hand resting on his knee, the other gripping the edge of his chair just lightly. He's not trying to hide the tension anymore. It's visible in his posture, in the way he's breathing a little slower, more controlled. Whoopi watches him for a moment, then leans forward again, her tone measured but still firm. All right, she says. Let's reset this for a second. Joy nods quickly. Yes, please. A couple of light laughs from the audience, relief but cautious. Whoopi continues. You say you're here to talk about your work. So let's talk about the work. Channing nods once. Thank you. Sunny jumps in, trying to smooth the transition. So the new role, what was the hardest part about it? Channing shifts slightly, like he's trying to get back into a more comfortable rhythm. Honestly slowing down, he says. Not relying on what I usually rely on. No shortcuts, no. Whoopi interrupts, not loudly, but enough to cut through. No dancing. A few laughs from the audience. Channing gives a quick half-smile. Yeah, no dancing. But the smile doesn't fully land this time. He continues. It was more about sitting with uncomfortable moments. Letting things breathe. Alyssa nods. That sounds like a big shift. Channing nods back. Yeah, it was. And I enjoyed that. Whoopi tilts her head again. So you enjoyed not doing what made you famous? There's that edge again. The audience reacts, not as loud as before, but the tension comes right back. Channing's smile disappears completely now. I enjoyed challenging myself, he says more firmly. Whoopi doesn't back off. But it sounds like you're separating the two. Channing leans forward slightly. I'm not separating anything, he says. I'm adding to it. Whoopi shakes her head slightly. But the way you're describing it, Channing cuts in this time. No, the way it's being interpreted. That interruption lands differently, sharper than anything before. The audience reacts immediately. Joy raises both hands now. Okay. But Whoopi doesn't stop. You keep saying that, she says. At some point, you have to consider that maybe the message isn't as clear as you think it is. Channing exhales sharply through his nose, looking off to the side for a second before turning back. Or maybe, he says, it's being pushed in a direction that it didn't start in. There's a louder reaction from the audience now, some clapping, some audible, yes, but also a few scattered groans. Sunny leans in, more serious now. Channing, I think what Whoopi's trying to say. Channing shakes his head slightly. I hear what she's saying, he says. I just don't agree with it. That's the clearest line drawn so far. The room tightens again. Whoopi leans back, her expression more fixed now. Well, disagreement is fine, she says. But you're getting defensive. Channing looks at her directly. I'm getting direct. Whoopi responds immediately. There's a difference. Channing doesn't look away. Not always. That exchange lands hard. The audience is fully locked in now, no background chatter, no distractions. Joy tries again, her voice slightly more urgent. All right, we're going in circles a little bit. But Whoopi continues, her tone still controlled, but unmistakably firm. Let me ask you something straight, she says. Channing nods once. Okay. Whoopi leans forward. If someone criticizes your past work, do you take it personally? There's a pause. Channing thinks for a second. Depends on how it's said, he answers. Whoopi nods. And if it's said like this? Another pause. Channing's expression tightens again. I think there's a difference between criticism and framing, he says. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. Explain that. Channing leans forward more now, elbows on his knees. Criticism is about the work, he says. Framing is about the person. The audience reacts, a stronger wave of applause this time. Whoopi watches him closely. And you feel like we're framing you? Channing doesn't hesitate this time. Yeah, he says. That one word lands heavier than anything else. The room goes quiet again. Sunny looks between them, clearly aware of how serious this has become. I don't think that's the intention, she says carefully. Channing nods slightly. I didn't say it was intentional, he replies. But that's how it feels. Whoopi exhales slowly, leaning back again. All right, she says. So now we're talking about feelings again. That line brings a mixed reaction, some laughter, but also tension. Channing sits back, shaking his head slightly. You keep saying that like it dismisses what I'm saying, he says. Whoopi responds quickly. No, I'm saying feelings aren't always facts. Channing leans forward again, this time more abruptly. And facts aren't always fair. That line hits hard. The audience reacts loudly, clapping, some standing slightly in their seats. Joy looks genuinely concerned now. Okay, we need to. But Channing continues, not raising his voice, but clearly more intense. I've been answering every question, he says. I've been respectful. But every answer keeps getting twisted into something else. Whoopi's expression tightens. Twisted or examined? Channing shakes his head. No, twisted. That direct contradiction lands sharply. The room feels split now, visibly. Sunny tries to step in again. I think what's happening is... But Channing cuts in again, this time more firmly than before. No, let me finish. That interruption changes everything. The audience reacts, louder than before. Even Joy leans back slightly, surprised. Channing continues, his tone steady but clearly at its limit. I'm sitting here trying to have a real conversation, he says. But it doesn't feel like a conversation. It feels like I'm being pushed into a corner, so the narrative fits a certain angle. Whoopi's eyes narrow slightly. What angle is that? Channing doesn't hesitate. That I'm somehow rejecting everything I've done before, or that I need to explain myself for wanting to grow. Whoopi responds immediately. No one said you need to explain yourself. Channing cuts in again. But that's exactly what this feels like. That overlap, both of them speaking, both of them not backing down, creates a sharp spike in the tension. The audience reacts loudly now, a mix of claps, gasps, and low murmurs. Joy raises her voice slightly. All right, we're going to take a quick. But Channing pushes his chair back just slightly. Not enough to stand, but enough that everyone notices. I don't think this is going anywhere productive, he says. That line lands like a drop. The room goes still. Whoopi looks at him, expression unreadable. Productive for who? She asks. Channing stands up. And that's the moment everything shifts from tense to explosive. The audience gasps, some people clapping, others clearly shocked. Joy stands halfway out of her chair. Channing, hey. Sunny looks stunned. Wait, hold on. But Channing doesn't sit back down. He adjusts his jacket slightly, looking at the table one last time. I came here to talk about my work, he says. Not to feel like I'm on trial. Whoopi stays seated, watching him. No one put you on trial, she says. Channing shakes his head. That's not how it felt. There's a long pause. The audience is completely silent now. And for the first time since the segment began, it's clear this isn't just a heated discussion anymore. It's about to become something much bigger. The moment he says that, the air in the studio feels completely different. Not tense in the usual talk show way. This is heavier, uncertain. The kind of moment where no one quite knows what's about to happen next. Channing is already standing, shoulders squared, not aggressive but clearly done with the conversation. He looks toward the side of the stage for a brief second, like he's deciding whether to leave immediately or give it one more beat. Joy steps in quickly, her voice softer now, trying to bring things down. Hey, Channing, come on. Sit back down for a second. We can reset this. A few audience members clap lightly, almost encouraging him to stay. Sunny nods. Yeah, we can move on, talk about the film. But Channing shakes his head, not dismissive, just firm. I don't think moving on fixes what just happened, he says. That line lands quietly, but it hits. Whoopi is still seated, hands folded, watching him closely. What exactly do you think happened? She asks. Channing looks back at her. I think, he says slowly, that every answer I gave got turned into something I didn't say. Whoopi responds immediately. Or clarified. Channing exhales, looking down briefly before meeting her gaze again. No, not clarified. There's a pause. Joy steps a little closer to the edge of the table, her tone more direct now. Okay, but walking off, that's not really the move either. Channing nods once. I get that, he says. But staying and pretending this is fine doesn't feel right either. The audience murmurs, some agreeing, some unsure. Sunny looks genuinely concerned now. No one's asking you to pretend, she says. We're just asking you to stay in the conversation. Channing gives a small, tight smile. I've been in it, he says. That's the problem. That line gets a reaction, louder this time. Whoopi leans back slightly, still composed. So what now, she asks. You just walk out. Channing doesn't answer immediately. He looks out toward the audience for a second, and you can see the hesitation. The awareness that this is live, that people are watching, that this moment will be replayed over and over. Then he looks back at the table. I think that's the best thing right now, he says. A few audible gasps ripple through the audience. Joy shakes her head slightly. Man, this is not how this was supposed to go. Channing responds, calm but final. Yeah, I know. There's a brief pause. One last moment where it feels like maybe he'll sit back down. But he doesn't. He gives a quick nod, not dismissive, more like closure, and turns toward the exit. The audience reaction splits immediately. Some people clap. Others stay completely silent. A few voices call out, stay, but it's scattered, unsure. Sunny watches him go, clearly unsettled. Wow, she says under her breath. Joy exhales, turning back toward the table as Channing disappears off stage. Well, that just happened. A nervous laugh moves through part of the audience, but it doesn't fully land. Whoopi remains calm, looking straight ahead for a moment before finally speaking. All right, she says. We're live television. This is what happens sometimes. Her tone is steady, but even she can't completely smooth over what just unfolded. Sunny nods slowly. I think emotions were just high, she says carefully. Joy looks at Whoopi. Do we take a break? Whoopi shakes her head slightly. No, we keep going. That line gets a small, surprised reaction from the audience. Whoopi turns toward the camera now, shifting into host mode. But the energy is still there, lingering. Listen, she says. Conversations like this aren't always comfortable. But they're real. Some audience members clap. Others still look unsure. Joy nods. Yeah, and I think people at home are definitely going to have opinions about this. That line draws a stronger reaction, because everyone in the room knows it's true. Sunny adds, social media is probably already reacting. A few laughs, but this time more genuine. The first real release of tension since Channing stood up. Whoopi continues. And that's fine. People should talk about it. The show moves forward, but the shift is obvious. The next segment starts, but it feels different. Lighter topics, quicker transitions, like the producers are trying to stabilize the tone. But the audience isn't as responsive. There's a lingering distraction, people whispering, some glancing toward the exit where Channing walked off. And behind the scenes, things are already moving. Producers are talking quickly, staff moving in and out, phones in hands. Within minutes, clips start circulating online. Short videos. Quick captions. Channing Tatum walks off live show. Heated clash with Whoopi Goldberg. Awkward interview turns tense. Social media reacts fast. Some people side with Channing, saying he was being pushed too hard, that the questions crossed into assumptions. Others defend Whoopi, saying she was doing her job, asking direct questions, not backing down. Clips of specific moments start trending. That's not how it felt. I'm not here to defend my entire career. Don't act like you're being cornered. Each line gets analyzed, replayed, debated. Back in the studio, the show wraps up, but the energy never fully resets. As the credits roll, the audience applause feels more routine than enthusiastic. And once the camera's cut, the hosts finally relax, just slightly. Joy leans back in her chair. Well, that's going to be everywhere. Sunny nods. Yeah, that's definitely going viral. Whoopi takes a breath, still composed. It is what it is, she says. But even that doesn't fully close the moment. Because off stage, Channing is already gone. No follow-up segment, no return, no clarification. Later reports say he left the building shortly after, skipping any backstage interviews. By the end of the day, headlines are everywhere. Entertainment blogs, reaction channels, commentary videos. Everyone breaking down what happened, who was right, who crossed the line. Some call it a necessary conversation. Others call it uncomfortable and avoidable. And just like that, a routine talk show appearance turns into one of those moments people keep talking about long after it ends. So now it's your turn. What do you think? Was Channing Tatum justified in walking out? Or should he have stayed and handled it differently? Drop your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout for more real talk show stories.